Family, there are moments in life when you call out to heaven, and it feels like the line is silent. You've prayed, you've waited, and you've wondered, oh, did he even hear me? Let me remind you today, silence is not absence. Just because you don't hear a reply right away doesn't mean your prayer is lost in the air. He heard you. He answered. The problem is we've been trained to believe an answer is only valid if it comes packaged in the way we imagine. You prayed for strength, but instead you got a challenge that made you stronger. You prayed for patience, but instead you got a delay that trained your heart to trust. You prayed for open doors, but God first closed the wrong ones so you wouldn't walk into disaster. That was his answer. And here's the truth. Sometimes the most loving thing God can do is to give you a no, because he sees further than you do. Sometimes the greatest blessing is the thing he withheld. You didn't realize it then, but if you look back now, you'll see it. His no was a better yes waiting in the future. But maybe you're in the waiting room right now. You've prayed, you've knocked, you've asked. And it feels like heaven hasn't written back. Don't mistake delay for denial. Delay is often God's way of aligning your request with his perfect will. Delay is shaping you into the person who can carry the blessing when it finally arrives. Here's the invitation. Don't give up while waiting for the answer. Don't quit before you see what he's building behind the scenes. Stand firm. Keep believing. Keep thanking him in advance. Because when you look back, you won't say, I hoped he answered. You'll declare, he answered every time, in every way, even when I didn't understand it. So today, walk with confidence, speak with gratitude, live with expectation. Because the God who heard you the first time hasn't stopped listening. And the God who answered you before is still answering you now. When life presses in on every side and your prayers feel like whispers into the wind, the temptation is to assume that heaven has grown deaf to your voice. But the reality is far more profound, because every cry of your heart is captured, every groan too deep for words is recorded, and every unspoken fear is carried before the throne of the one who never slumbers nor sleeps. And even though you may not always sense his nearness in the way you expect, silence is not a signal of neglect. For silence is often the sacred space where faith is being stretched, character is being refined, and vision is being enlarged. And just as a teacher is quietest during the test, not because the student has been abandoned, but because the student already carries what is necessary to pass. So too, the silence you feel does not indicate abandonment, but affirmation. That what you already carry will be enough to sustain you until the answer arrives. The truth that should anchor your soul is that divine hearing is not limited by volume, eloquence, or repetition. Because even the faintest sigh from a weary heart ascends like incense to the presence of God. And while you may believe your request is buried under the noise of millions of other prayers, you must remember that the one who created galaxies also counts the hairs on your head and bottles your tears. Meaning that no detail of your cry is too small to move his heart. And although people may dismiss your struggles or fail to understand your pain, there is one whose ears are tuned to the frequency of your soul. So when you call, he hears, and when you whisper, he listens. And when you break, he is attentive to the shattering sound of your spirit. And often the challenge is not whether he has heard, but whether we can trust that he has heard, because faith does not rest in immediate feedback, but in the unshakable assurance that the one who designed time itself will respond in a way that transcends your impatience. And this truth liberates you from the burden of believing that unanswered prayer is unheard prayer. For the two are not the same, and the stillness you experience is not evidence of divine absence, but an opportunity to deepen reliance. Because in the quiet corridors of waiting, you discover that the answer you truly need is not always deliverance from the circumstance, but a deeper awareness of the presence that sustains you within it. And if you dare to look back over your life with honesty, You will realize that there were moments you cried out for things you thought would save you. And though those specific requests seemed to fall on deaf ears, what unfolded instead was better, wiser, and more purposeful than you could have ever orchestrated. And in hindsight, you can say with confidence that he heard you, even if his answer were a disguise you could not recognize in the moment. So do not let the apparent quietness of heaven drive you into despair, but let it drive you deeper into trust, because his hearing is not passive reception, but active compassion. And when he hears, he begins to move, sometimes in ways visible, sometimes in ways hidden, but always in ways that serve your ultimate good. Therefore, hold on in the midnight hour. Cry out even when your voice shakes. Whisper even when your faith is fragile, for your prayer is not bouncing off the ceiling, but rising like a fragrant offering into the very presence of the one who loves you beyond comprehension. And while the timeline of the reply may test your patience, the certainty of being heard should anchor your soul in unshakable peace. For the one who heard you yesterday hears you today and will hear you tomorrow. And the simple but powerful truth remains unaltered across all seasons. He always hears. There are seasons in life when the heart aches for a quick response, when the weight of waiting feels like an unbearable burden, and the delay between prayer and fulfillment makes you question whether the answer is ever coming. Yet the truth is that timing is not a matter of your clock, but of a divine calendar. A rhythm orchestrated by wisdom greater than your own, where every second of waiting is woven into a design that will make sense only when the whole picture is revealed. We live in a world addicted to immediacy, where instant replies, fast solutions, and quick turnarounds are celebrated as marks of progress. But the reality of spiritual growth operates differently, because maturity is formed not in what is given instantly, but in what is developed gradually. And in the waiting, something essential is happening within you that cannot be bypassed. The answer you long for may already be prepared, but your heart may not yet be prepared to carry it. And so the delay is not a punishment, but a protection, not a rejection, but a preparation. And while you may interpret the pause as silence, it is often the stage where unseen forces are aligning. Opportunities are being ready, and hidden battles are being fought on your behalf. Think of the farmer who plants a seed in the soil. He does not dig it up the next day to check if it has grown, for he understands that the unseen work beneath the soil is as critical as the visible harvest above it. And so it is with your prayers. The germination takes time, and the growth happens in hidden places before it is revealed in public. If you receive too soon what was meant for later, the blessing can become a burden, the gift can become heavy, and the door that opened too early can crush the one who walked through it unprepared. So what you perceive as delay is often an act of love. For the right thing at the wrong time can become the wrong thing altogether. The essence of faith is learning to surrender your impatience to the wisdom of divine timing, trusting that what feels late to you is right on schedule in the grander design of eternity. At the same time, waiting teaches you lessons that answers alone could never provide, because the process of waiting reshapes your perspective, clarifies your priorities, and purifies your motives. And while you stand in that tension between asking and receiving, you've discovered that the delay itself becomes a teacher, chiseling away the immaturity of demanding and cultivating the maturity of trusting. In that sacred in-between space, you are forced to ask yourself deeper questions. Am I seeking what I want, or am I truly seeking what is best? Am I prepared for the responsibility attached to the request I am making? The timing of the answer confronts these questions, often revealing that the real transformation is not in the arrival of what you desire, but in the becoming of who you are while you wait. The answer may seem postponed, but within the postponement lies hidden treasures. Patience that develops endurance, endurance that builds character, and character that births hope that cannot be shaken by circumstances. And when the answer finally arrives, you will recognize that it did not simply come at a random moment, but at the precise intersection of your readiness and divine purpose, arriving in such a way that not only meets your need, but also teaches you to value the weight that shaped you. What once felt like wasted time will be revealed as the exact preparation you needed. And in that moment, you will see clearly that the answer was never late. It was always on time. And that the struggle of waiting was not in vain, but was the very ground on which your faith was strengthened and your destiny was secured. When people pray, they often expect one type of answer, a clear yes that fits their desires neatly and quickly. Yet the reality is far more complex and far more beautiful, because the one who hears does not limit his response to human preferences. Sometimes the answer comes in the form of a yes, and in those moments, joy overflows because what you hoped for, dreamed of, and asked for aligns with what was given. That yes feels like validation, like proof that heaven is listening, and it encourages you to continue asking. But if you only measure the faithfulness of God by how many times you receive a yes, you will miss the fullness of how He responds. A yes is not the only way He proves His love. Sometimes He proves it by saying no, because the no that feels painful in the moment often becomes the protection you will thank Him for later. Think of the times in your life when you desperately wanted something, convinced that it was the key to your happiness or security, only to realize years later that if you had received it, it would have broken you, distracted you, or delayed your true purpose. That no was not rejection. It was redirection, a way of guarding you from settling for less than the fullness of what was prepared for you. Then there are the times when the answer is not yes or no, but wait. And this may be the hardest form of answer to accept because it tests your patience, your faith, and your endurance. Waiting feels uncomfortable because it confronts your desire for control, and it pushes you into a posture of surrender, where you must trust that the answer is coming even though you do not know when. Waiting is not wasted. It is a sacred delay where hidden work is being done behind the curtain of your circumstances, aligning things you cannot see and shaping you in ways you do not yet understand. A wait can feel cruel if you see it only as a postponement of your desires. But if you shift your perspective, you will see that waiting seasons are often the most transformative seasons, the ones that grow resilience, deepen gratitude, and strengthen your ability to carry the blessing when it finally arrives. The wait is the ground where faith matures, where impatience is burned away, and where trust is purified, teaching you to rely not on what you see, but on what you believe. This is why some of the greatest answers you will ever receive are not immediate, but delayed. Because a delayed answer often comes with greater depth, greater wisdom, and greater strength than an instant one ever could. The different forms of answer, yes, no, and wait, are not random responses scattered without intention. They are threads of a larger tapestry woven with wisdom far beyond human understanding. To embrace them requires humility, because it means letting go of the illusion that you always know what is best for yourself. It means trusting that even when the no breaks your heart, it is saving your life. And even when the weight stretches your soul, it is enlarging your capacity. Each answer carries purpose, even when it does not carry comfort. And each response is a declaration that you are seen, heard, and loved in ways deeper than you realize. When you begin to view every answer through this lens, gratitude becomes your default posture. Gratitude for the yes that fulfilled your desire. Gratitude for the no that protected your future. And gratitude for the wait that prepared your character. And over time, you will come to see that the point of prayer was never just to secure a yes, but to align your heart with the wisdom of the one who always responds, sometimes in agreement, sometimes in correction, and sometimes in delay, but always in love. So often people treat prayer as if it is a button to press that forces heaven to deliver whatever is requested. Yet the deeper reality is that prayer is less about pushing something to happen and more about aligning yourself with what has already been purposed. Your position matters because prayer is not just about speaking words, but about placing your heart in the right posture to receive. If your posture is filled with entitlement, impatience, or self-centeredness, then even when the answer comes, you may not recognize it or you may misuse it. But when your heart is positioned in humility, gratitude, and surrender, you create a space where the answer can take root and bear fruit. The posture of your spirit is like the soil of a garden. No matter how many seeds are scattered, growth only happens when the soil is ready, soft, and receptive. The positioning is not about forcing the answer, but preparing for it, so that when it arrives, it does not slip through your fingers. Position is not just about the heart. It is also about perspective. If you live in constant negativity, doubt, or bitterness, you can be standing in the very place where your answer is unfolding and still not see it, because your eyes are clouded by what you expect instead of being open to what is actually being given. Sometimes the answer comes disguised in forms you did not anticipate. Strength that is built through hardship, wisdom that is gained through failure, opportunity that looks like responsibility, or blessings that first arrive looking like burden. When your perspective is skewed, you call answers problems, and you call delays punishments, when in truth they may be the very responses you prayed for, delivered in packaging you never imagined. This is why your position of mind matters. You must cultivate a lens of faith that looks beyond appearance, so that you can discern the hidden blessings wrapped inside unexpected circumstances. Your position also shows up in your consistency. Many people give up praying, give up believing, give up waiting just before the breakthrough comes. And they miss the answer not because it was denied, but because they abandoned their position too soon. To remain positioned means to stay steady, even when you see no evidence. To keep showing up in faith when every voice tells you to quit, and to continue sowing seeds of trust, even when the ground looks barren. Consistency is what proves that your position is more than a temporary stance. It is a lifestyle of expectation. When you hold your ground, you signal that you are serious about carrying what you ask for. Answers are not just about requests being granted, but endurance being proven. And those who maintain their position through seasons of silence and struggle are the ones who discover that the answer was not only prepared for them, but that they were prepared for the answer. Finally, positioning is about relationship. If you treat prayer like a transaction, you may grow frustrated when it does not operate on your schedule. But if you treat it like a relationship, you will realize that every moment of prayer, even before the answer arrives, is shaping intimacy, building trust, and deepening connection. Your position matters because prayer is not a vending machine, but a conversation. Not a ritual, but a relationship. When you position yourself not as someone demanding from a distant force, but as someone communing with a loving Father, you begin to value the process as much as the result. You no longer measure prayer only by what you get, but also by who you become in the process of asking, listening, and receiving. And in that relationship, your position transforms you from anxious to peaceful, from impatient to steadfast, from doubtful to confident. The answer matters, yes, but the position in which you wait for it shapes the kind of person who will be ready to hold it when it finally arrives. Delay is one of the greatest tests of faith, because it stretches the human heart beyond comfort and into the realm of trust. When you ask for something and it does not arrive quickly, the mind immediately begins to doubt, whispering questions like why, when, and how long. Yet delay is not the absence of an answer. It is often the process by which the answer is being shaped and by which you are being shaped to hold it. In the waiting, faith is invited to rise above sight, because faith that only believes when it sees is not faith at all. Delay forces you to anchor your hope not in what you hold in your hands, but in the unseen assurance that what has been promised will manifest in its proper season. The delay is not designed to destroy your expectation, but to deepen it, making you resilient enough to trust even when nothing changes on the surface. In seasons of delay, faith becomes a choice you make daily. You wake up and decide whether you will live by sight or by belief, whether you will surrender to discouragement or continue to stand on promises greater than your pain. Delay can be discouraging because it magnifies the gap between what you desire and what you currently see. But in that gap, growth happens. Muscles only develop when they are placed under resistance. And in the same way, faith only develops when it is placed under pressure. Each day of waiting stretches your trust like a muscle, strengthening it until it can carry more than it ever could before. Without delay, faith would remain fragile and immature, unable to withstand the storms of life. With delay, faith grows roots that go deeper than emotions, deeper than circumstances, anchoring you in a place where you can stand unshaken, regardless of the time it takes for the answer to arrive. Delay is also a revealer of motives. When what you prayed for does not come quickly, you are forced to confront why you prayed for it in the first place. Was it for comfort, for control, for appearance, or was it truly for growth, for service, for destiny? Delay strips away the surface layers of desire and brings you face to face with the authenticity of your heart. Many discover in delay that what they thought they wanted is not truly what they need, and others find that their request evolves over time into something deeper, wiser, and more aligned with purpose. Delay is not wasted time. It is refining time, a season where the purity of your motives is tested and only what is real remains. When the answer finally comes, it carries more weight because it has been purified through waiting. And you will be able to steward it with maturity because delay has already matured you. In the long nights of waiting, it is easy to believe that delay means denial, but this is where faith does its greatest work. Delay does not mean you have been forgotten. It often means you are being prepared for more than you imagined. The farmer does not doubt the seed just because he does not see a sprout on the second day. He understands that beneath the soil, unseen processes are at work, and the harvest is inevitable if he does not give up. In the same way, your prayers are not buried in silence but planted in purpose, and delay is the soil where they are taking root. Faith and delay looks like holding on even when the soil looks empty, like declaring gratitude even when the answer has not arrived. And like trusting that the unseen hand working beneath the surface is faithful to bring forth fruit in its season. And when the day finally comes that the answer appears, you will see that the delay was not a wasted detour, but a divine design. What seemed like lost time will reveal itself as preparation time. What felt like silence will prove to have been strategy. And the faith that carried you through the waiting will shine brighter than the answer itself. You will discover that the real miracle was not just what you received at the end of the delay, but who you became in the process of enduring it. Faith through delay transforms you from someone who depends on circumstances to someone who depends on certainty. From someone who wavers with time to someone who is anchored beyond time. In that moment, you will realize that the delay never diminished the answer. It magnified it. Because the longer you waited, the greater the joy when it arrived, and the stronger the faith you carried into the next season of your journey. Celebration is often overlooked in the journey of faith, because once the answer finally comes, the human heart tends to rush forward to the next request, forgetting to pause and give thanks for what has already been received. But gratitude is not just good manners. It is spiritual oxygen that keeps your faith alive for the next season. To celebrate the answer is to acknowledge that what you hold in your hands today is the very thing you once cried out for, that what feels normal now was once only a dream and that every answered prayer is a reminder of divine faithfulness. Celebration keeps you from living in constant dissatisfaction, always chasing the next blessing without recognizing the one already present. Without celebration, even miracles can become mundane, and blessings can feel like burdens. But when you choose to celebrate, your heart stays soft, your perspective stays lifted, and your spirit stays expectant. Celebrating the answer also means recognizing that not all answers look like the ones you expected, and that too is a reason for gratitude. Sometimes you asked for strength and the answer came in the form of a challenge that made you stronger. Sometimes you asked for clarity and the answer came in the form of closed doors that redirected you toward the right path. Sometimes you asked for love and the answer came not in another person, but in a deeper awareness of your own worth. These may not be the answers you imagined, but they are the answers you needed. And celebration teaches you to see the hidden good in what initially felt like disappointment. Gratitude shifts your eyes from what was withheld to what was given. And in that shift, you begin to recognize the fingerprints of purpose, even in unexpected places. To celebrate the answer is also to make room for joy in your spiritual journey. Because joy is not just a byproduct of blessings. It is a discipline that multiplies blessing. When you celebrate, you magnify the goodness of what has been done. And in magnifying it, you strengthen your own faith for the future. Celebration becomes fuel for the next season of waiting, reminding you that if it happened before, it can happen again. And if prayers were answered once, they will be answered again. This is why gratitude is not optional. It is essential. Joy does not minimize your struggles. It magnifies your strength. And by celebrating, you declare that your story is not one of scarcity, but of abundance. Not of abandonment, but of consistent care. Celebration also has the power to break cycles of negativity and entitlement. When you fail to celebrate, you begin to live as if you are owed something, constantly measuring your life by what you lack instead of what you possess. But when you practice gratitude, you break that cycle by choosing to see blessings where others see problems, choosing to focus on provision rather than deficiency. Gratitude transforms your outlook on life itself. What once felt like an ordinary day becomes extraordinary when you recognize it as an answered prayer. And what once felt like a small step becomes significant when you realize it is part of a larger journey. This shift does not just affect your mood. It affects your relationships, your resilience, and even your ability to recognize future opportunities. There is also a deeper spiritual dimension to celebration. Because gratitude is not just about what you receive, it is about who you become. Every time you celebrate, you train your heart to be more aware, more present, and more content. You begin to see that life itself is filled with answers you may have overlooked. The breath in your lungs, the people who care for you, the opportunities you have been given, the strength to endure another day. When you learn to celebrate these everyday answers, you live with a deeper sense of fulfillment that no circumstance can steal. Gratitude becomes a shield against despair, a light in dark seasons, and a reminder that you are never walking alone. Ultimately, to celebrate the answer is to declare that you trust the process, no matter what form the answer took. Whether the answer was yes, no, or wait, there is always something to celebrate. The yes that fulfilled your desire, the no that protected your future, or the wait that shaped your character. Celebration transforms your memory into testimony, turning past answers into present encouragement and future hope. When you look back and celebrate, you create a foundation of faith that carries you forward, knowing that the one who answered before will answer again. And in that posture of gratitude, you do not simply move from prayer to prayer. You move from glory to glory, living each day with the awareness that you are walking in the unfolding story of answered prayers, and that every step, every season, Every response is worth celebrating.